Fever's most recent win, a big one over Connecticut. You all know that. It's been several days. We'll talk a little bit more about that by looking at their stretch run, injuries to Sophie Cunningham, and we'll talk about the Caitlin Clark latest before talking about why Aliyah Boston is the key to it all coming today on a Fever Report version of Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to the Fever Report version of Locked On Women's Basketball, where you get to hear about the Indiana Fever every week. For me, I'm Tony East. I've covered the Fever since 2020 for the 9, and today we dive in more to the current landscape of the Fever, who have only played one game since I last talked to you, a big win over Connecticut. Boy, oh boy, did they need that one. We'll talk a little bit about that game. Obviously, a lot of time has happened since that game's really marinated and settled emotionally for everybody, but I want to talk a little bit about Kelsey Mitchell and why that win was so big because of the stretch run coming that I might be responsible for overhyping. We'll talk injuries, Sophie Cunningham going down, what that means for their roster changes, this Caitlin Clark update that came out this week, and of course, Aliyah Boston, the star. She needs the ball more. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, the Fever beat the Sun on Sunday. You all know that by now. That was 5 days ago somehow, but it was their most recent game. So first of all, rare opportunity for the Fever to practice 4 times this week. I don't know if they had a formal practice Monday, but certainly they got work in as a team a lot this week. And I talked before their previous 4 games. They played Chicago, Washington, Connecticut, and Dallas for a 4-game stretch about how important that stretch was because of their close to the season schedule. And I would like to marry up those two thoughts because right now you can go check Tankathon, go look at the remaining strength of schedule for every team, and you'll see the Fever have the hardest by opponent record remaining schedule in the league. And that would be challenging. And that's why I said before, one, that stretch of 4 games against the 4 teams with the worst records at the time was so important. And the Fever did not do as well as they needed to. I said they needed 3 wins. They only got 2. So that's part of why the Connecticut win was huge. Because if they went 1-3 in that stretch, things would not be looking good. But 2, because of that schedule upcoming, banking wins just in general would be important. So currently they're 19-16, obviously. With that remaining schedule coming, we're going to marry up those thoughts in a second. I still maintain, though, right now the 8th seed Seattle Storm are 18-18, exactly 500. The 9th seed Sparks, 17-18. And the Sparks, by the way, the 3rd hardest remaining schedule for them, and they have a game against the Fever that is very big. Golden State is right there, hovering just above 500 right now on a 2-game losing streak, right? I maintain that a 500 record will get you in the playoffs this year in the WNBA. So getting that win over Connecticut was huge. One, because now the Fever need 3 wins in their last 9 games to make it. And they play Chicago, and they play LA, and they play Golden State, and they play Washington. I'm not saying it'll be easy, especially with all the injuries building up for the Fever, but it's totally possible. And I'll tell you another little secret about their schedule coming up. But that's why that win was so important and why that Kelsey Mitchell second half was just so massive, right? That's how they won their 2 games. Well, in part, their 2 games during this stretch of easy opponents where they needed to win more than 2 games. Kelsey Mitchell's passing against the sky and her scoring against the Sun. 38, I believe 34 from the start of the second half onwards. Every other time she's reached 36 in her career, I believe she's hit more than 5 threes, only, air quotes, it's still a ton, 5 threes in this game. The Sun made 7 as a team. The Fever made 7 as a team. Kelsey Mitchell had 5 of the 14 threes in the game, but 11 free throws because she was getting to the cup, 6 made 2s. She was just fantastic, and 6 assists as well. That I've seen. So the last game I went to, or excuse me, one of the first games I covered went to for the Fever was in 2019. It was Kelsey Mitchell's first 38-point game. So now the last 2 games I've watched for the Fever, the last 2 games I've watched, the bookends of my time covering the Fever are Kelsey Mitchell 38-point games. She can do this kind of stuff, and boy, did they need her to do it. But there was a lot of stuff that went right in that game. Turning to Bree Turner on defense. Natasha Howard had a nice statistical game, but her defense was tough. In this one, she had 5 fouls. Bree Turner came in, did a great job on Tina Charles, did a great job switching on the perimeter, some nice passes, some nice rebounds. She was plus 10 and played all of overtime. Smart move by Stephanie White. Lexi Hall pulled out of the starting 5 for Odyssey Sims. I thought they would do that the game before. I think that makes a ton of sense. Sims played 42 minutes. They won those minutes by 11. But Hall off the bench in 37 minutes with 7 boards and hit the dagger 3. She was huge. right? What you saw in this game after Cunningham went down after just 10 minutes of play was what the Fever kind of need and what they're going to need going forward. All hands on deck. Everybody's got to have a niche and a role that they fill. And we'll talk more about that in the second segment when we get to injury. But everybody did that in this game. And Mitchell was the headliner with her 38. But that win was so big for the Fever to get that 19th win before their close. If they had to win 4 of their last 10, that's still reasonable to get to 500 for the season. But 3 is very possible. They haven't had an over 500 season in ages because last year they were exactly 500. So certainly still a chance for them to do it this year. Now let's talk about the Fever's remaining schedule, right? If you look at the strength of schedule thing I talked about, Tankathon does a great job with the remaining strength of schedule, just in terms of opponent quality and record and what their cumulative record is. Now, because of these 4 days off, which the Fever needed, they have the most games left of any team as well. They play Minnesota 3 times, which is doing a lot of heavy lifting on the challenges of their strength of schedule, and then a Phoenix game, and then 2 of their hardest remaining games are Golden State and Seattle. So the Lynx are the next 2 games. We'll see what Napheesa Collier is, but first of all, let's talk about those 2 games. They play tonight in about 4 hours from me talking. Oops, I should have done this earlier in the day. They play again on Sunday. The Lynx played last night in Atlanta. So the Lynx are playing Thursday in Atlanta, Friday in Indy, Sunday in Minneapolis. That's a terribly hard travel schedule, right? We'll see if Napheesa Collier plays tonight. This is the second straight game she's listed questionable, but that is a favorable way to play the league's best team, who is currently not playing their best. They've lost 2 games in a row, albeit to great opponents. So those 2 games are challenging. It's totally possible the Fever lose both, but a solid condition to play the Lynx and give yourselves a chance. And by the way, they already beat the Lynx without Caitlin Clark this season, right? Obviously, they're more banged up than they were in the Commissioner's Cup championship game, but the Fever can win those games. Their final game against the Lynx is the last game of the season for both teams. And I don't know this, right? The schedule could break differently, but the Lynx have a 5-game lead, 5.5-game lead over second place. It is exceedingly likely, I would say, that they have secured the 1 seed by that game and are not playing for anything, right? And so they have a good incentive in that case to rest players for that game. So that game, while it looks tough on paper, they're playing a good Minnesota team. Maybe they do try for some or all of that game, but I would wager that game is easier for the Fever than the schedule suggests. You knock out those 3 of their 6 games, or at least reduce the challenge that is on paper. And then their other 6 games are Golden State, Seattle, Chicago, Washington, LA, and Phoenix. That's totally manageable, right? Phoenix is tough, but the rest are all meh kind of teams. So the Minnesota challenge is really carrying their strength of schedule, but I don't think any of those 3 games are as hard as just the raw win percentage that the Lynx provide. Now, that said, they could lose all 3 of those. The Lynx are still really good without Napheesa Collier, and they're still really good in situations of adversity, and they're very well coached, and they play together, and they're very talented. I am not saying they are easy games. I'm saying they are easier games than the Lynx record suggests, and so it's possible that, like, Phoenix is the toughest opponent left for the Fever. But I'll say this, they've handled the Sky all year, even when hurt. If they beat Chicago, they need to win 2 of their games total against LA, Washington, Seattle, Golden State, and Phoenix. If they get swept by the Lynx, that is totally possible. And the team I'm keeping an eye on, the 2 teams I'm keeping an eye on when it comes to the final playoff spot isn't Seattle. I think Seattle's going to get their stuff together. The Seattle has a pretty easy schedule on the coast. It's the Sparks, obviously, who are just out of the playoff picture right now. The Sparks still play the Dream twice, the Aces, the Mercury twice, and of course the Fever. So if the Fever beat the Sparks, that's huge. They could keep them down. And Golden State plays Minnesota twice, the Liberty and Phoenix, and of course the Fever. If the Fever beat just Golden State and the Sparks, I think their chance to make the playoffs would already be pretty high. So I know a lot of people are saying phone it in, tank, whatever, it's over. Like, they almost can't. I think the Fever have won enough games now that they can even just kind of stumble the rest of the way through the season and make the playoffs. But I think they're going to do better than that because they still have 2 All-Stars starting for their team. Their schedule is not quite as hard as it looks like it is on paper, and they've beaten teams even when banged up before. We'll see how the rest of this goes, but I think that if you really, really, really dive into the intricacies of what's remaining for them, I think their chances of making the playoffs are now pretty dang high, even with a really high schedule. And if they win just one of these 2 against the Lynx, I'll feel even better about their chances. And I know they feel good about it after that win over Connecticut because they showed that they can rally even from huge deficits, keep fighting. Emotional Steph White after that game. Amazing game from Kelsey Mitchell. Fantastic fourth quarter from Aliyah Boston. We'll talk more about her later. And I want to talk about what else happened in that game. Sophie Cunningham got hurt. What's going to happen now? What do they need to do? Why did that lead to another roster move? Caitlin Clark had something happen to her ankle. What happened there? We'll get to that coming up here on Locked On Women's Basketball. Before we dive into any of that, let's talk about game time. Have you ever decided last minute you want to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you could splurge on food, drinks, merch, even a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible, and they make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. It's the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. Whatever market you're in, go check it out. If you're tired of endlessly scrolling to find the best deal, they have zone deals, seat views, no hidden fees. You know exactly what you're getting. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Back here on the Fever Report version of Locked On Women's Basketball. Thanks for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. If you're interested in the men's basketball team here in Indiana, I host Locked On Pacers as well every single day. Let's keep it rocking here on Locked On Women's Basketball. Sophie Cunningham, terrible news for the Fever. She became their de facto second ball handler with Clark out, with Colson season over, with McDonald season over. It was Mitchell handling the ball a lot. It was Sophie Cunningham handling the ball a little. And obviously Odyssey Sims had ramped up now, so Cunningham's ball handling responsibility was dropping, but still there. She was basically their backup point guard at times, and she had handled the ball quite a bit when McDonald was in and out earlier in the year, stuff like that. She now rotates under the basket. Bria Hartley attacking the rim, collide, MCL tear for Cunningham. Her season's over. You can read more about that in a story I wrote in the 9. I'll put it maybe in the description of this, but just brutal news for Cunningham, who fits well with the Fever system, certainly, as she's shown this season. She's been a fiery player, a good player, and career-high three-point percentage. And that includes going 0 for 3 in her final game against Connecticut. She found some efficiency, and even that's after kind of starting slow with the ankle injury she was dealing with early in the year. I did a whole segment on her and Natasha Howard playing so well when the Fever were really surging, kind of right after Caitlin got hurt earlier in August. And some of that was her finally getting healthy. Like she mentioned how much the ankle injury actually kept her down from, a slower start. And so once she got healthy, she was really rolling. Now the Fever lose that. What can you even say? 3 players with ball handling responsibilities out for the season in 10 days. 2 in Phoenix, in Colson and McDonald, and now this Cunningham one's just brutal. That's 3 of the 12 rostered players. Now, obviously, those 3, combined with Clark's absence, means hardships galore for the Fever. Odyssey Sims obviously has one. I think she'll probably stick for as much time as they can. Maybe that even entails the rest of the season. She has good pedigree. She's a good player. As you saw, her first game was not good, but I told you on this very podcast, I think she's going to be better as time goes on. And I think I've been proven right so far about that. I explained to you who I talked to about it. If you want to go back and listen to that, she was quite good in Connecticut, 19 points and 7 assists. She had some turnovers that she's got to clean up, but she's a vet. She'll get there. Former All-Star, like she knows what this takes. And then they had, at the time of speaking last week and going into in the Connecticut game, they had Kyra Lambert on their second hardship at the time. They had 2 available with 3 players out. Lambert played the last 4 seconds of that game. Very cool for her to get her WNBA debut and make it. Like, that's a huge deal for anybody. But I wondered Monday. They waived Kyra Lambert Monday, and her 7-day didn't expire till Wednesday. So they did it early, and I wondered why. And I would have been guessing. I poked around but didn't get anything on that. My guess was, though, they did that knowing that they were going to lose Sophie Cunningham for a while, and they needed a different kind of hardship player who could actually handle the ball and give them minutes that they're comfortable with. Lambert had potential. Like, that's what Stephanie White described, is like they could help her learn and develop her a bit to certain situations, but they needed a more immediate contributor as a ball handler when they lost Cunningham, who had been their 3rd ball handler given their current reality. And that's exactly what the case was. My intuition just was lucky there, I would say. Shea Petty is now on the Fever. She gets their second hardship spot that they currently have. So it's Odyssey Sims and Shea Petty. Both point guards the Fever have that are natural point guards are hardship players that have been on the team for like a combined 20 days or something like that. I mean, just a crazy reality the Fever with. I'd imagine they will now be starting going forward until Clark gets healthy or doesn't, or someone else comes back. I would imagine it will be Sims, Mitchell, Hall, Howard, Boston going forward with a bench of whatever big they decide to play. Dantas, Turner, Timpson, whoever. Chloe Bibby acting as a wing, and then Shea Petty as a ball handler, and then they just kind of rotate in and out whoever they think their ninth player can be in a particular game. And then also should be noted that just like when Coulson and McDonald got hurt, they had to wait a game to get a hardship player. After Cunningham misses tonight's game, the Fever will get another hardship spot. So until Clark returns, they could have 3 hardship players. So we'll see what they do with that. I think they need a wing or like a forwardy sized wing. We'll see what position they opt to go for, but that's just what I would be looking at as the Fever. They certainly need size out there now, because outside of Lexi Hall, I would say, I think everybody would agree with this too. Outside of Lexi Hall, every available player now for the Fever is either more easily categorized as a guard or a big and not a wing. Cunningham was, more so wing than guard to me, but she can handle the ball. But Sims clearly a guard, Mitchell clearly a guard. Hall is a wing, obviously. Petty's clearly a guard, and then Howard, Boston, Dantas, Turner, Biggs. Bibby is like a stretch forward, so she's probably your backup wing tonight, but I think they would like another wing with a hardship if they can get it, and that will become available to them Saturday. And then when Clark returns, when/if, who knows, as the comments continue to say, then they would lose one of their hardship players, but they have 2 guards, and they would presumably get rid of one of those. We'll see how it goes, but that is the current injury update. Is 4 players out, they could have 3 hardships. It's brutal how bad this has been for the Fever. I mean, I've covered a lot of Fever seasons. This is the most banged up I've ever seen. Stephanie White obviously said this is the most banged up team she's ever coached, ever. And it's just bad luck, right? A torn ACL, leaping for a rebound, a contact torn MCL. Like a broken foot, like driving to the basket for what? It's crazy stuff. It's just voodoo levels of bad. That's obviously a joke, but it just sucks for the Fever. And they'll try again to adjust to a new point guard in Shea Petty, and they'll try again to adjust to a new player whenever they get their Cunningham hardship and pick up the pieces from there. That was if they had lost to Connecticut and lost Sophie Cunningham that night, I mean, that would have just been a devastating day for the Fever. As was learned this week, speaking of injury updates, Caitlin Clark, Scott Agnes at Fieldhouse Files reported this, and then it got confirmed at a bunch of places. You can read more about it in my story in the 9. Did deal with a little ankle thing when they were in Phoenix the same day, I believe, that they lost the other 2 players for the season. I'll just read you what I wrote in the 9. On top of the current month-plus absence of Caitlin Clark, who was dealing with a groin injury and suffered a bone bruise in her left ankle while the Fever were in Phoenix earlier this month, a league source confirmed to the 9. Clark has been rehabbing both injuries. Her recovery when it comes to her groin issue is unimpacted. So that's what I heard. That's what has been reported by others as well, is that there is no actual timeline that's been provided or said, but it's not impacted, whatever it is, by this. So she was recovering from both for a second. A lot of people said, why is this just coming out? What's being hit? Blah, blah, blah. If you heard about every single tweak that happens in a workout or practice that like unimpacted a player's availability, we'd be talking about this stuff constantly. Like Kelsey Mitchell had that finger thing before the season that happened in China. Like we didn't hear about that till she said it like weeks into the season, for example. You can go on and on about this stuff. Like I covered the NBA too. Like it's just how it is. If it's not a big enough deal that like it actually impacts somebody's availability, it very rarely gets said at all. So that's just my read on this and how it happened. Now, obviously for a marquee player, people want to know about it. And so it got reported on, but that's my read on why it wasn't like immediately advertised by the team. But that's the latest on Clark. We'll still see. People keep saying, is she going to be out for the season or not? What do you know? Well, I don't know anything. If I knew for a fact, I would report it and put a story up. If you want me to just opine, I don't know why she would be attempting to rehab and come back if she wasn't trying to play this season. So my assumption would be that she is trying to. And guess what? Stephanie White keeps saying that's the hope. So I think that's true. I think they hope that she can return this season. It's just a very interesting and tough reality for the Fever to be facing because they've shown like they can beat anybody. They beat the Lynx without Clark this year. They beat the Liberty. Obviously, Clark played in that game. They beat Phoenix this season. They can beat anybody, even this banged up. If they have all three of their all-stars, if Clark comes back, they can hang. Like, it's worth going for it to me if she can come back, and it would have no impact on her long-term health. And the offseason is coming, which would be the time for recovery. So if she can return, that'd be great. Practice time will become more limited now after this 4-day off stretch that they had this week. So we'll see. But people keep saying like they wouldn't have time to practice till September. Like, no, they'll practice on their road trip. They practice on Saturday, for Pete's sake. So we'll see where this goes. I don't know anything. I'm just going off of intuition, I suppose, that why would she be pushing to come back if she wasn't going to? I truly think she is trying to return. The team hopes she does. Okay, let's talk about Aliyah Boston to close this one out. She's got to be more involved. Got to be more involved as we close out today's Fever Fridays version of Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you all for tuning in today on this Fever Fridays version of Locked On Women's Basketball. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. You can find coverage of every WNBA team, many college programs at the 9, including my work, of course, covering the Fever. And Locked On Women's Basketball is here 6 days a week with coverage of the women's basketball world. Tomorrow, another show. Monday, there'll be another one. They just keep coming, including many shows about other WNBA teams that are just focused on that team. Stephanie White said something last week that really was interesting to me, and I got what she said, but I didn't really compartmentalize it until the fourth quarter of that Connecticut game, and that is she said Aliyah Boston is probably the player most impacted by this point guard kind of carousel. Clark in and out, and then Colson and McDonald was in and out earlier this season, and now Colson's gone and McDonald's gone, and now here comes Odyssey Sims. She's new, and then, okay, here's Kyra Lambert. Okay, just kidding. Here's Shea Petty, and I got it. I get it. I think every player is somewhat impacted by point guards, but Aliyah Boston specifically, I covered her rookie year. She was awesome. Terrific player, amazing rookie, all-star, beast, right? The Fever that year did not have Caitlin Clark. Obviously, they played much slower in pace than they did the following year. And many of you already know this or have heard Aliyah talk about this, or really just if you've watched the games, you've seen it. They changed their pace dramatically when Caitlin got to Indiana, as they should. Duh. She's a masterful, high-paced player. It made the Fever's offense sing. They should have done that. But Aliyah specifically, who went from South Carolina to the Fever to a totally different style of the Fever, like she was constantly adjusting, and she started last season very poorly. And I predicted before the year that she was going to be quite good with Caitlin, and she started bad and made me look stupid, and I was wrong, and I should have been wrong. And then she adjusted to the new tempo and looked great the rest of the year and deserved her all-star spot and was just a special player. And then this year, she didn't start slow because she explained that she knew the system. She understood the tempo of how the Fever play. She got it, right? It was much more natural and easy to her to do all that, right? And so clearly she not requires an adjustment, but when she is more comfortable in a system, in her partnership with a player, she is more effective, right? Got it. I think everybody understands that naturally for a big. And so now, as the Fever have not had Caitlin, and they've tried to keep their pace, and they could with Aerie and Kelsey as the ball handlers, now it's a lot harder. Like, you have a much more limited playbook when it's Odyssey Sims, who's been on the team for, a week and a half, and it's Shea Petty, who's been on the team for 3 days, and Kyra Lambert, who hasn't played the W before. I said this last week, I believe. You saw it in Sims' debut that her first 2 possessions on the floor, they ran the same play. And so it's just a lot of change, and that impacts everybody. But for a player like Aliyah, whose impact involves a lot of flow stuff, I would say, run up and set a screen and figure out, should she be rolling? Should she be cutting? Where should she be going to help the guard best navigate or help the offense keep going? If they're doing a double drag, should she screen for somebody else? Right. And she clearly, look what the Fever have been doing late in games, right? They go to a Kelsey Mitchell, Aliyah Boston 2-player game. They have great synergy. They can't do that with a lot of other talents. So Aliyah, and she also is very good at scoring in the post. She gets the ball from guards on rolls or on post-ups. If they don't have as good of synergy, it's going to be harder for Aliyah to get the ball. So I get it with what Stephanie White was saying, but really thinking about it, she is the most impacted player. And you saw in the fourth quarter of that Connecticut game where she started to set a ton of huge screens, made shots inside the arc. She was 7 for 13 all on twos with 14, 13, and 5 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. She was awesome in Connecticut. What really that means, right? If she is really energized, setting good screens, getting into open space, getting the ball, demanding attention from the defense, that gives the Fever another way of playing that doesn't just rely on their ball handlers getting to the cup to bend a defense. And I think the Fever need to find a way to get Aaliyah more involved. In fact, I wanted to ask Aaliyah about this. So here's 2 minutes of Aliyah Boston's press conference from practice on Thursday. And in some of the questions, he touches on this very topic.
The comeback for this team, what turned the corner late in that game and then the overtime?
I think just our mindset going into that second half. We decided that we were just going to chip away. We just continue to tell ourselves each possession by possession, give them one chance, and keep shooting the ball. I mean, going into that second half, I think we made 0 threes at that point, and they were good looks. So I think for us, just knowing that we were taking good shots, and then once you saw one go in, I mean, here we go.
Is there an element of needing to feel a little more aggressive at times with this team than maybe falling behind to find that some nights?
Yeah, I think, we always talk about it, like our starts just have to be great. And I think coming into that game, I mean, we had a good start for the first minute and a half, and then they kind of went on their run, and then for us, we're turning the ball over too much. So I think for us to just kind of find that pace and just holding it.
Leah, we've heard Steph talk about how the point guard in and out, injuries, all that has impacted you maybe the most of anybody, just with the way the team plays, how to get you involved. Have you felt that? How have you tried to adjust to keeping yourself up there?
Yeah, I think adjusting is the name of the game. That's kind of been our season. And so for me, it's just about continuing to approach every game the same. Trying to find where I can get my touches, just trying to give us extra possessions. And so for me, I think I just take it game by game and just try to continue to show up and be that consistent piece.
I know you've talked about how Caitlin's changing play style made last year start different for you with so many different point guards. How do you try to get synergy with them as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I mean, you just try to come in and do what you do. I think early communication is always going to be important for us, depending on whatever guard. It doesn't matter. I think just making sure that we're talking about what we want to get, who has the hot hand, continuing to find them, and just continue to do that.
What do you feel like you guys were able to get accomplished this week?
I think just continue working on our defense. I think, thinking about Minnesota, the way they like to space the floor, the way they like to move the ball, just making sure that we're just aggressive and making sure that we're on the same, we're all connected.
How much are you doing standing watches, if at all, right now that 3 weeks left and it's go time?
Oh, I mean, no, we're in there. We're just going. Like, I think we're in full go right now. Just continue to work, watching a lot of film, obviously watching a lot of games, and just trying to be as prepared as I can.
Always appreciate Aaliyah's insight. A blast to talk to her. She really gets it. And I think that for the Fever to stay afloat to the extent that they can in their current injury reality, they need to defend really well and turn their defense into offense. I've said that 3 straight weeks on this show. The zone they ran against Chicago helped them do that. There's other ways that they can, do exactly that. But they need to play through Aaliyah more, I think, to keep their offense humming. Obviously, Kelsey Mitchell can go supernova and win them some games, but they shouldn't want to rely on that, right? They should want to rely on a team, an ecosystem, an idea, and I think Aliyah Boston can get them there. That is your Fever report for the week. My opinions on Caitlin Clark's absence, the reporting and facts on Sophie Cunningham, their win over Connecticut, their schedule, and Aliyah Boston. We'll know more by next week as their schedule gets going, and they'll be on another road trip by the time we talk next week, and we'll see who they sign. We'll see what they do. We'll see how things go. Thank you all so much for listening. You can find my reporting on the Fever in the 9, and I've been covering them for now 5 years. Back tomorrow in this feed, you'll get more from the women's basketball world. Thank you all so much for listening. Check out everybody's coverage at theix.com. Thank you for listening. See you soon.